Welcome to Think Grow, where we cover trending news of World Day 4. We've got a really wild ride for you today. We're connecting the dots between some crazy shifting geopolitical realities, natural disasters, and we are building up to a truly shocking revelation at the very end about how the platforms we trust are literally holding massive amounts of student data hostage. I'm super excited to guide you through all this, so let's just jump right in.
Here is our agenda for today. We're looking at the Iran war ripple effect, geopolitics and elections, tragedies and disasters, the hantavirus scare, corporate shakeups, and finally, those shocking cyber scandals. Like I said, we are building up to a massive digital privacy shocker in Section 6 that you definitely won't want to miss.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the Iran War's global ripple effect.
So, looking at the current state of diplomacy right now, we are seeing some really significant hurdles. U.S. President Trump actually came out and sharply criticized an Iranian counteroffer that was supposed to aim at ending the war. He flat out stated that the proposed month-long ceasefire is unbelievably weak, and he said it's currently on, quote, massive life support. It's just a stark reminder of how fragile these negotiations really are right now.
And while leaders are debating these ceasefires, the economic shockwaves, they're already hitting home. 3.8%. That is the new rate of U.S. inflation. It's jumped to its highest levels since May of 2023. And the direct driver here? Surging energy costs that are completely tied to this ongoing conflict in Iran. So consumers are really feeling the pinch, whether that's at the gas pump or in their heating bills.
But it's not just energy prices, and honestly, this next part brilliantly illustrates the bizarre, highly connected supply chain reality that we all live in. A major snack giant has actually been forced to switch to black and white packaging. Why? Well, because the effective closure of the Strait of Hormuz has so severely disrupted the global supply of energy and petrochemicals that there is literally a massive shortage of the specific ink used to print those colorful wrappers. It's crazy, right? It really shows how a geopolitical choke point halfway across the world can just drain the color right out of your own pantry.
Moving right along to Section 2, geopolitical shifts and elections.
Today's political landscape is incredibly diverse. Just look at Uganda, for instance. 81-year-old Yoweri Museveni has just been sworn in for a record 7th term following those disputed January elections. That extends a 40-year grip on power. Meanwhile, over in France, they're attempting a really historic pivot. French President Emmanuel Macron is meeting with African leaders in Kenya, which is a first since the 1970s, in a bid to move entirely beyond those old colonial ties. And then in India, the political calculus is fundamentally shifting. While welfare politics still matter, voters are increasingly demanding jobs, growth, and dignity from their leaders.
We're also observing some extremely high-stakes diplomatic tests on multiple fronts right now. First up, we've got the first U.S. presidential visit to China in nearly a decade. This is set to severely test an already super fragile tariff truce between the two economic superpowers. And then on the cultural front, the Eurovision Song Contest is facing its biggest boycott in its 70-year history over Israel's participation. This is raising some really serious questions about the long-term future of the competition itself. So politics permeates absolutely everything, as we can see.
Okay, let's head into Section 3, global tragedies and disasters. Here we are objectively juxtaposing some deeply conflicting reports regarding a devastating airstrike in Kabul that happened on March 16th. On one side, you have Pakistan claiming its forces struck military and terrorist infrastructure. But on the exact opposite side, the UN and grieving families state the strike actually hit a rehabilitation center, killing 269 Afghan civilians. And the UN is even warning that the actual death toll is likely higher. Families are now urgently demanding that this be investigated as a war crime. It really highlights the tragic fog of war and just the devastating civilian toll these regional conflicts take.
Shifting over to natural disasters, the sheer power of the Earth delivered a really sudden tragedy in Indonesia. Mount Dakono erupted violently on Friday. An Indonesian guide who was actually leading an expedition shared a pretty harrowing account of the sudden blast. Tragically, it claimed the lives of 3 hikers who were up on the volcano.
Now let's talk about Section 4, the hantavirus outbreak scare.
Let's track how this is building geographically, because it's wild. It starts in Ushuaia, which is that tourist hotspot at the end of the world down in Argentina. They are actively denying that they're the source of the outbreak. But from there, the monitoring net stretches massively. Authorities are currently watching 16 cruise ship passengers way up in Nebraska, 2 in Atlanta, and another 6 in Canada. But honestly, the most dramatic part? The situation actually required a specialist soldier to literally parachute critical medical supplies onto the remote South Atlantic island of Tristan da Cunha. Just incredible.
So, the crucial point here is understanding the actual threat level amidst all this dramatic global movement. The World Health Organization has stepped in with some reassurance. They're stating there is currently no sign of a larger hantavirus outbreak. However, the head of the UN Health Agency did immediately qualify this. He warned that the situation is fluid and it could still rapidly change as more confirmed cases might pop up. Just for some quick context, hantavirus is a severe and sometimes fatal respiratory disease transmitted by rodents, which definitely explains the high alert monitoring we're seeing right now.
All right, shifting gears a bit for Section 5, Entertainment and Corporate Shakeups.
$55.5 billion. Let that number sink in for a second. Online auction giant eBay made massive waves in the financial sector by just outright rejecting this mammoth buyout offer from video game retailer GameStop. The whole deal essentially fell apart because eBay expressed some really severe doubts about exactly how GameStop was planning to finance such an astronomical acquisition.
Meanwhile, localized corporate and entertainment scheduling clashed spectacularly over in Mexico. Get this, the government had proposed ending the school year a whole month early, moving it to June 5th instead of July 15th. This was supposed to accommodate the World Cup tournament and some expected extreme heat. But the plan was completely scrapped. Why? Because of massive anger from parents whose daily lives and childcare arrangements would have just been thrown into absolute chaos.
And that brings us to the crucial question we teased at the very start of this explainer. We've talked about physical wars, economic inflation, natural disasters, but what about the unseen world? Is your digital footprint actually safe? This completely moves us from physical world news to some deeply personal digital threats. Which leads us to our final, highly anticipated topic, Section 6, Shocking Cyber and Tech Scandals.
We are seeing massive blowback against tech failures on a global scale. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen just announced the EU is pushing an expert panel to find ways to delay social media access for minors by July. Over in the US, Texas is aggressively suing Netflix. They're accusing the platform of essentially spying on users, and importantly, that includes children, through those endless autoplay features that are designed to harvest viewing data. And then in India, the scale of data vulnerability caused literal protests in the streets. Authorities had to entirely scrap a highly competitive medical entrance test that 2.28 million students had just taken. And all of that was because of massive paper leak claims.
But okay, here is the most shocking revelation today, the one we've been building toward. It revolves around the educational platform Canvas. Now, this is a system trusted by thousands of colleges and universities worldwide to hold student records, grades, incredibly personal info. Well, following a massive breach that severely disrupted those institutions, the company behind Canvas admitted they actually reached an agreement with the attackers. Yeah, meaning they paid off the criminals to delete the stolen student data.
And honestly, that just beautifully and terrifyingly sums up our modern reality. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. If the massive, well-funded platforms that we trust with our most sensitive personal and educational data are resorting to paying ransoms to unseen hackers, who really controls our digital future? It's definitely a question that demands our attention. Thank you so much for joining me today on Think Grow to unpack these complex stories. Keep asking questions, keep demanding clarity, and I'll see you in the next explainer.